What are you working on?
G'day, I'm Dave Brown. This is a companion project to our sevenworld.org in the process of making podcast. In this short-form YouTube video series, I'm having 7-minute chats with people from all walks of life that simply begin with a question, what are you working on? Today, we chat to Susan Huang, the artistic director of Shiny Heart Productions. She's an actor, a theatre maker, and a wellbeing educator. So we begin by asking Susan, what are you working on?
What am I working on at the moment? A few things actually. So extraordinarily ordinary, but with our children's theatre company, Shiny Heart Productions, we're currently working on presenting, especially on birthdays, out to New South Wales schools and audiences. So we invite them to come to Flight Path Theatre, which is, especially on birthdays, now the resident children's show there. And we're also planning a regional tour for next year in 2026 as well.
And do you have children?
I do. I have two young girls, a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old. Sorry, a 6-year-old. She just turned 6.
And how does having children affect what you're passionate about?
I think they opened up my world to understanding their world in that they're always open to learning, especially my 6-year-old. She's one that I would say has a lot of emotions. And helping her navigate this landscape and this world, it's really opened my eyes up to the skills that they need to procure throughout their life. But doing it in a way that they connect with is the most important part, and joyfully as well.
Yeah. So how do you do that?
What I've seen when I go into schools is you'd be surprised at how stressed a child's life is. You think they're living quite joyful, happy lives, being in playgrounds and being in schools. But when they start to share their stories and what's happening in their world, you start to realize that, a lot of people live on a timetable where the world is just continually going and they've got a lot of information thrown at them, and they see that their parents are stressed and their parents are working, and they take all this in. And it's just helping them to navigate that and what that means for them, and letting go in a joyful way as well.
Is there a specific moment where you felt that, yes, I've made a difference in that person's life?
I specifically remember when I was especially on birthdays, performing last year. And when I looked out on the audience, because a beautiful part of especially on birthdays is that we get to break the fourth wall and we get to include the audience in on the journey and bring them in on the emotional aspects of the character. So in this particular part where Tamika's at her lowest point, she's so upset with her brother. And I'm looking out in the audience and I can see their eyes welting up because they felt just as sad and disappointed. And I know so many kids have been in the situation where, you get into an argument with a friend or a sibling and it starts with a little bit of a push and pull, but then it eventuates to a point where it feels overwhelming. It's gone too far and you don't know how to bring it back. And I know that they've all been in that situation and in that space. And so when I see their eyes welting up, I know that we've made that connection in just in that short amount of time. And when I come out of it and, at the end of the show, they tell me that, we loved the performance, but there were some parts where it felt so sad. And I think that's important for them to be able to explore that in a safe way, because oftentimes we have children's theatre that it's just joyful and uplifting, but we forget that they have so many emotions just like adults do. And we need to create safe spaces for them to be able to explore that.
So where does this sort of creative drive come from?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question and very hard to explain, because I think in one of your podcasts, you said there are people that are driven and inclined to create, and then there are some people that are not. And that completely resonated with me, because I don't know where this drive came from. If you asked me 10 years ago what would I would be doing, I would have not said creating children's theatre. And I want to be able to create a life that I love, and I have no idea what that means. But every day I explore that idea. And so, I'm not going to take a job that I don't absolutely love, or I'm not going to explore projects that I don't absolutely love. I always come back and ask myself, do I absolutely love this? Is it part of me creating the vision of a life that I love? And it's just led me on this journey of the next thing. And here we are.
To what extent do you have to balance that with the need to earn an income, and how do you negotiate those sometimes opposite drives.
Absolutely. I'm learning that now in the creative world. Because I came from, I was quite lucky in my 20s. I owned my own business. I owned a nut and chocolate shop. So it was also about, creating joy in a very different way. And, when I sold that business, that freed me up to then explore what's next. And so here I am in the, theatre world and performing arts world, and I'm starting to realize that you really need to have a balance between the business mind and the creative mind. And I'm so grateful for my co-producers at Flight Path Theatre, where, they help me explore different ideas where we can bring sustainability and the business models in that will help sustain the creative practice. And so it is a balance. We're working that out.
Of the shows that I've made, probably the ones that I love best are the hardest to sell because they aren't based on something that people already know.
Absolutely. If you're not adapting a best-selling book, then chances are your tickets are going to be, much lower. However, I find that I focus more on the audience that do show up. You may not sell out a whole box office, but the people that do show up and experience your work, that then ripples out into, their lives. And so that matters more to me. As much as we'd want to make, a box office hit and be able to bring in that income, it's balancing the why behind why you're doing it, but also being able to sustain that as well.
Yeah, that's a great answer.
So in my early 20s, I actually went to study a commerce accounting degree. And through my whole school life, I was quite a maths whiz. It just naturally comes to me. So I always thought I'd pursue accounting. And then I got to the end of the degree and I just didn't feel satisfied. Something in me just went, I was working for a big corporate company and I just thought, I just need to give something else a go. And so at the time, my sister owned a nut and chocolate shop and I decided to buy that from her. And so I just dove straight into that world. And I went and did a chocolate making course and learned how to make handmade chocolates. We grew the business. And that whole time, when I have a business, I always ask myself, why am I doing this? And I remember back then creating my why statement for the chocolate business was, I'm creating joy in the world, just in small bitefuls.
That's beautiful.
And I still bring that into my everyday life. I think I just keep exploring the what's next. But my big mission in life is just to make sure that I leave the world a little bit brighter in any which way. And I think I'm just trying to continue to do that in whichever way I can.
Have you got a quote that you'd like to share with us?
The one that I keep coming back to, I think, in my life is one by Dr. Seuss. And I think it's the one from the Lorax. And he says, let me try to remember. Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. And that's probably one of my favorite quotes.
That's beautiful. Just break it down for us, would you?
And it just really means that if you want to create some change or if you see something that needs to be done in the world, you've got to be willing to put your hand up and do the work.
The time you are taking, the effort you're making to manifest something, whatever it be. The question I'm asking in this little song is, what are you working on? What are you working on?